Carla always gave the best gifts. Creepypasta. My friend Carla had a knack for giving you exactly what you needed, even if you didn't know it yourself. For my 26th birthday, we went to a nightclub. It had been an especially sunny day, not a single cloud in the sky. Still, she gave me a yellow umbrella that looked like it came from an antique shop. I thought it was ugly and absurd, especially since she knew I hated bright colors. But as we stepped outside, an unexpected downpour started, even though the forecast had promised clear skies. At Christmas, she gave me a gift card for a store. The very next day, a website glitch offered all merchandise at 90% off, with the 50 on her card. I bought thousands of dollars worth of clothes, and that was nothing compared to her gift at her nephew Lucas' christening. She gave the baby a black cat, fully aware that the mother, her sister, was allergic. It all made sense 2 days later, when the cat caught a huge rat crawling in through the baby's room ventilation. Apparently, the child had been having health issues related to infections, and thanks to the cat, they discovered the source and fixed it once and for all. Everyone in our group noticed those strange coincidences. We used to joke she was a witch. She'd just laugh and say it was luck. That her method was simple. She flipped a coin 3 times. She did it to decide which store to enter, what to buy, even what time to leave the house. If she got 3 heads, she went ahead. If not, she changed the plan. We always laughed at that, grateful for her gifts. But something changed this year. Yesterday was my birthday. The conversation was lively, the music loud. My cousin Valeria nailed it with her mimosas. My co-workers praised the snacks. My friend Juan told stories from his trip to the Amazon. Even though the party was a success, Carla looked uneasy. She sat in the corner of the couch with a full glass of wine, not speaking to anyone. That was unusual for her. She was normally outgoing and full of light. She kept glancing at the hallway, the window, the stairs, as if expecting something or someone to appear out of nowhere. I walked over and asked if everything was okay. She looked nervously at her gift, stacked with the others. She said she'd felt off all day, a tight anxiety in her chest. She couldn't explain it. Then she admitted it had something to do with her gift, that she was embarrassed about it. She leaned in, lips tight, and murmured, "Open it when everyone's gone, please." I was about to agree when my boyfriend shouted, "Open the presents." Open the presents. The pressure from the group did the rest. Carla lowered her gaze. Her discomfort made me nervous. That afternoon, while we were setting up for the party, it felt something strange. Nothing specific, just a vague discomfort, like the air was heavier. At one point, I could have sworn I saw a shadow move in the hallway as I passed the kitchen. But when I looked, nothing was there. I figured maybe it was the lights or just my imagination. I shook my head and went back to prepping drinks and music. There was too much to focus on. I started opening presents. My friends had outdone themselves this year. One even gave me a ticket to see my favorite band. I saved Carla's box for last. It was rectangular and soft, with rounded edges, wrapped in yellow paper and a red ribbon. Attached was a note that read, "To Julian, may you have many more birthdays." Everyone waited eagerly, holding their breath, convinced it would be another example of her mysterious gift-giving. Slowly, I tore open the yellow paper and opened the box, a carton of eggs. The silence was suffocating. 12 white eggs. No one knew what to say until my boyfriend let out a nervous laugh. Soon everyone burst into laughter. I laughed with them and joked. "Looks like your gift-giving powers are running low." Carla held my gaze and smiled, but her eyes remained uneasy. "It's what you need," she said quietly. The coin said so. That phrase unsettled me more than it should have. I drank too much that night. We went to bed without cleaning up. We didn't realize we'd left Carla's gift on the kitchen floor. A seemingly insignificant detail, until now. I'm standing outside my house, watching the police carry out a body.
Salom Garka.
The serial killer who had terrorized the city for a year. He would hide in his victims' homes for 30 days before murdering them in their sleep. It was going to be our turn, but this time, he didn't get the chance. He slipped in the kitchen. His head slammed into the countertop. Dead on impact. Beside him, the crushed carton of eggs. I imagine him entering my kitchen, the crunch of eggs underfoot. And then, a dull thud, flesh against concrete, his limp body on the white tile floor, life slipping away. The thought makes me sick. The police keep asking if I'd noticed anything strange, unusual noises. Missing food. How long since I'd checked the guest room closet. That's where they found a calendar. 30 days marked off. My stomach churns as they question me. I can't stop thinking about Carla, about her nervous look, about the coin falling once, twice, 3 times into her palm. How did she know? Did she suspect something? Am I really still alive thanks only to chance? To something as arbitrary and fragile as luck? What if I hadn't opened her gift that night? What if she had felt too ashamed to give it to me? Or even to come to the party? A cold breeze runs down my spine. But one thing's for sure, he'll always gladly accept any gift from Carla. Whatever it is. Don't drive on South Fork Road with a tail light out. There is only one road that leads to Jacob's Landing. Considered an isolated hive of poor white trash by neighbors, most Americans would describe as such. It lies at the far end of South Fork Road, a narrow trail that remained unpaved until the past 10 years. If you want a mental image of the community, then picture any poor post-industrial town in Ohio or West Virginia. Place it on the coast and make it smell like rotting fish. I'm not saying this to be rude, I still call the place home, but I am honest about where I live. And I feel that this is needed context to explain the atmosphere in which this story occurred. Growing up, there were always stories us kids would tell each other about the thing with too many eyes that lived in the woods, or old lady so-and-so who was a witch. But one was a favorite of the local gossip circles, and that was the story of the silent patrol car. As the story went, sometime between 1960 and 1980, a sheriff's deputy who might have been named Hank. If you go by the version my older brother tormented me with as a boy, sometimes the name is changed to Bill or James. These were also favorite names, depending on who was telling the story. Whoever he was, this young man was assigned to a speed trap along South Fork Road during a dark and misty night. Around midnight, a car came shooting down the road like a bat out of hell, and Deputy Hank peeled out after him. From here, the story us kids told would veer into an exciting car chase stolen from whatever movie we had seen most recently, and entirely divorced from the local geography. But it always ended the same. Deputy Hank going off the road and smashing into a particular crooked old tree just outside of town. The legend went like this, that to this day, between midnight and sunrise, anyone who broke any law on South Fork Road would find a patrol car appearing behind them out of the mist. It would chase you down all the while making no sound, until you either went off the road yourself or made it past the tree where the story claimed he met his grisly end. For 47 years I have lived here and never believed a single one of the silly stories I heard as a child. But after what just happened, I'm convinced this one is true. Last night I was in Whisper Bay, big-ish town north of here, attending a Memorial Day party at an old friend's house. As I was leaving, he ran alongside my car and warned me that my right tail light was out, and to watch out for cops as I drove home. I swore at the inconvenience, thanked him, and began the drive home. I took the back roads through an area we used to call Mud Hill and south onto South Fork Road. I'd been driving for maybe half a mile when this enormous buck stepped out in front of me, and I had to slam on my brakes. It stopped in the way of deer and looked at me as if I were the suicidal maniac and not the damned kamikaze animal in front of me. That's when I noticed the flashing lights in my rearview mirror, not wanting to block the road. I pulled ahead and off to the side to wait for the cop to give me a hard time about the tail light. But as the lights got closer, I realized they were not slowing down. My first thought was that he was responding to an emergency in town and didn't know or care about my broken tail light. But it soon became clear that he was heading right for me. I slammed on the gas, thanking God I hadn't turned off the engine. But it wasn't enough, as the grill of the old patrol car slammed hard into the back of my truck, jarring my head forward into the steering wheel with a sharp knock that left blood dripping down my face from a small cut above my eyebrow. The first thoughts that went through my mind after I could think at all were, of course, that the officer had some kind of medical emergency behind the wheel and needed help. But as I looked back at the cop who was already backing up, something came over me that I cannot explain. Some animal part of my brain, some hunter's instinct from our mammoth killing days told me to run. And when there was no doubt that the car was lining up to make another run, that is exactly what I did. I hit 80 as fast as I could, And that old patrol car was matching my speed exactly. It was then that I realized that I could only hear the roar of my own engine, and not the V8 growl of his. The story of the silent patrol car came back to me from its childhood tomb, and pushed my needle even farther into the red, as blood flowed thicker now into my eye, half blinding me as I raced. I was going 100 by the time I could see the lights of town through the woods, and had no plans on stopping. That gnarled old tree that had killed its share of drunks was rushing up on me, and I honestly didn't care if I made it past or died in the attempt. Now, as I write this in hindsight with an ice pack on my head and a cigarette in my hand, I find it hard to believe what happened to me. I want to rationalize this. I try to, but I can't. I know what I saw, and I know I'm not crazy. When I shot past that tree and onto Main Street like a bullet, I watched in the mirror as the patrol car behind me, never slowing, reached the tree and then, like the flick of a switch, was gone. One moment it was there, and the next there was nothing but straight, empty blacktop behind me for as far as the eye could see. I never slowed until I screamed up my driveway and stumbled blindly into my bathroom to puke. But when with shaking hands I reached for the lighter in my pocket, I found a crumpled sheet of old yellow paper, a speeding ticket dated 1974. So I warn you now, whomever and wherever you may be, not to disregard the stories you heard as kids. Oh, most of them are probably nonsense. In your case, maybe all of them. But let this stand as a warning that not all are fiction. Some are corruptions of explainable events. Others are fables meant to teach a lesson. But somewhere out there in the night, there are a few that are nothing but the unvarnished truth. Drive safe. I played a death game on my phone. When I was 12 years old, I had a game on my phone. The game was called Giggle Rot. The object of the game was to collect as much gold as possible. In the game, you have to leave the house and return within 60 seconds with as much gold as you can find. There are 3 rounds, and each round is harder than the previous one. I used to play this game a lot, but especially when my parents fought. The game also had a phone from which a man would tell you where the gold was. One night, I turned on the game, but for some reason the game just shut down. After a while, the game came back, but it was different. In fact, more different than you might imagine. Instead of collecting gold, I collected bodies. Round 1. Round 1 begun, and I started collecting the gold. The man on the phone started saying the gold is 30 meters away, and I started walking towards the bodies. When I made it, I was shocked. The body, it was my mom's, and my father was next to me staring at me. I started to get stressed and closed the game, and suddenly, I heard a knock on the door. "Who's there?" I asked. And suddenly I saw Dad opening the door. He smiled at me with a big smile. "Good night, my girl." I asked him where Mom was because she usually said good night to me first. "She is sleeping," he said. But I didn't believe him. Mom always said goodbye to me. "Good night," I said, and pretended to be asleep when Dad closed the door. I waited a few minutes and opened it. But then I got a message on my phone. It was from the game saying, "Isn't it quieter without her?" Then I looked up and saw Dad looking at me. He seemed very happy, and it scared me a little. "Do you have fun playing the game?" he asked me in a deep, soothing tone. Suddenly, he moved 2 steps to the right. That's when I saw a floor full of blood leading to a body. And yes, it was my mom's body. I threw my phone at him and started running away from the house. My father didn't move and kept smiling at me with his creepy face. I managed to get away, terrified. I called the cops, but they couldn't find anything. Dad ran away and I never saw him again. The strange thing is that my mother's body disappeared too. "911 call led me to a basement I'll never forget. I met Daniel Whitaker in the fall of 2018. We were both part of the same volunteer fire department in rural Pennsylvania. He wasn't the kind of man you forget, tall, quiet, the kind whose eyes always scanned the room like he was waiting for something terrible. He never smiled much, but he was kind. And there was never a question where his loyalty stood with his wife, Claire, and their 2 kids, Ben and Ellie. What happened to them wasn't in the papers. You wouldn't find it on the local news or in online forums. But I was there when we responded to the 911 call that night. And I know what I saw. It started with a weird noise. Claire described it as a whisper through the walls. It happened at night. Just after they'd gone to bed, they'd hear someone or something speaking words too distorted to understand. At first, Daniel thought it was just the wind or maybe an animal in the walls. But then Ben started waking up screaming, saying a man without a face was standing at the foot of his bed. They installed cameras. Nothing ever showed up, not even shadows. But the whispers didn't stop. Daniel came to me about it once. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Said he thought something had followed him home from one of our calls, a burned-out farmhouse a few towns over. Said when he walked through the basement, he felt like he'd passed through a veil of cold air, like something old and angry was watching him. It doesn't want them, he told me. It wants me. That night, Claire called 911. I got there before the others. The house was silent. No lights, no movement. Just the front door wide open, like something had walked in and didn't care to close it. I stepped inside, called out to Daniel, Claire, the kids. No answer. Then I heard a sound coming from the basement. Not footsteps, something else. Something wet. I found Daniel there, sitting in the dark at the bottom of the stairs, holding a knife. At first I thought he'd hurt himself, but he was uninjured. His hands were shaking. There were markings on the wall symbols, scratched in with what looked like blood. I tried to get him to come up with me, to tell me where Claire and the kids were. They're safe, he whispered. I told it I'd go first. He looked at me then, and his eyes were hollow. It promised it wouldn't touch them if I said yes, if I went willingly. Before I could stop him, he plunged the knife into his chest. We found Claire and the kids upstairs. They were alive, shaken but unharmed. Claire kept asking where Daniel was. When I told her, something passed over her face. Not shock, not sorrow, relief. He said it would only take the first one, she whispered. They moved away soon after. No forwarding address, no phone calls. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I swear I hear it too. A whisper through the walls, promising safety in exchange for something he'll never get back. And I think about Daniel, how brave he was, how selfless, and how maybe, just maybe it lied. Why you'll never sleep alone in that house again. Back in 2021, we started construction on our house in a desert area of an Arabic country. In Islam, we believe in something called jinn. They're like spirits, creatures with their own world and powers. Some are harmless, others not so much. We also believe in magic, especially black magic, which can be used to cause harm or manipulate people through jinn. The first night at the construction site was normal, quiet, empty. But starting from the third night, I began to feel something. A strange sensation that hit me every time I got near the house. It felt like I was being watched, not just watched, studied. My skin would crawl the second I stepped close. At first, I tried to brush it off. In our culture, there's a belief that when a place is left abandoned for too long, jinn may claim it as their own. Or if someone wishes harm upon you, they may send jinn to occupy it through black magic. On the fourth night, I began hearing sounds, soft, strange noises, like something moving through gravel or brushing past the walls. My cousin was with me, and I could tell he was uneasy too. We didn't talk about it. By the fifth night, the noises became clearer. Whispers, scratching, movement that didn't belong to any animal we knew. Then came the sixth night. That's when I saw it, a figure, dark and fast, almost like a shadow running just out of reach. I only caught glimpses, but it was enough. We left for our home city shortly after, and honestly, I tried to forget. I buried it all. Life went back to normal for a while. But months later, we returned. One night, while checking the place, we walked into the house and there it was, a black snake, unmoving in the center of the floor. Its eyes were shiny and strange, and it stared directly at us, not afraid, not moving, just watching. We called the elders. They brought a sheikh, someone who uses the Quran to break black magic. After visiting, he confirmed that someone had cursed the house. Black magic had been placed on us. For several nights, the sheikh came and read verses until sunrise. It was intense. The air felt heavy. I still felt watched, even when I wasn't near the house. Eventually his work was done. The feeling faded. The house stood untouched for a while. 4 years passed. We finished construction. We moved in. But the fear came rushing back. I couldn't sleep. I didn't feel safe. Every dark corner felt like it was hiding something. I made sure I was never alone, and that every shadowed place was locked tight. And still, until this day, I haven't told anyone about this, and I still refuse to go back to that house. A man keeps appearing in my baby photos, and now he's in every one I take. My mom always said I was a quiet baby, born in winter, baptized by spring. There's a photo from that day we've had forever, me in white. Priest behind my parents, sunlight through stained glass. I've seen it 100 times, but last month I noticed something. In the corner, deep in the background, a man, tall, hands clasped, just watching. Thing is, there's no window back there, just stone. I showed my mom. She says he's not in her copy. We went to the church to ask the priest. He stared for a long time, then whispered something in Latin, and burned the photo right there. Said I should sleep with a rosary, that whatever I saw doesn't fade, it follows. Since then, I've taken a few selfies just to feel normal, but every single one in the reflection of a mirror or window behind me, he's there again. Same clothes, same folded hands, same stare, and now I'm starting to remember things I shouldn't. Mom says I never had a brother, but I remember him standing at the end of my crib. My little sister won't stop watching me even when I sleep. My 13-year-old sister began spacing out more often. She'd stop mid-sentence. Her eyes glazed over, like she was listening to something only she could hear. At first, I thought it was stress from school, or maybe some new TikTok trend where kids pretend to glitch. But this wasn't a joke. I live with my mom and my sister in a quiet neighborhood. We've been in the same house for years. Nothing strange ever happened here. Until now. The first real incident happened at night. I got up to use the bathroom around 2 a.m., and as I passed the living room, I saw her, my sister, sitting cross-legged on the floor in the dark, staring at the TV. The screen was off. She was whispering something, but I couldn't understand the words. "Sis?" I called softly. She didn't turn her head, didn't blink, just kept staring, whispering. The next morning, she acted normal. When I asked her about it, she looked confused and laughed like I was making it up, but I wasn't. And things only got weirder. She started hiding, behind doors, under tables. I'd catch glimpses of her watching me sometimes from behind the couch, sometimes from the crack in my bedroom door. Always silent, always staring. One afternoon, I came home early. The house was quiet, too quiet. I went to my room and saw a note on my pillow in childish handwriting. I froze. I looked anyway. Nothing, just dust and old shoes. That night, I heard scratching, not on the floor and the ceiling. Our rooms are on the second floor. I asked Mom if she heard anything. She just sighed and said my sister was acting out and going through a weird phase. "Don't encourage it," she said. But how could I ignore what I saw next? I woke up to find her in my room, again. Except this time she wasn't standing. She was crawling, slowly, on all fours. Her joints twisted, elbows sticking out at sharp angles. Her neck crooked, as if it had been broken and reassembled wrong. She whispered, "Hair's in the walls." I jumped out of bed and turned on the lights. She was gone. I checked the hallway, her room, the bathroom, nothing. The next morning, her bedroom door was nailed shut. 3 rusty nails. I asked Mom what happened. "I didn't do that," she said, visibly shaken. Why would I lock my daughter in her room? We both stared at the door. Then came the smell, something rancid, like spoiled meat and wet wood. It was coming from the vents. We called a plumber and an exterminator. They found nothing. I set up my phone to record again, at 3:17 a.m. Just like before, the door creaked open. My sister crawled in backwards, her limbs jerking unnaturally. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her, something slithered. A shadow too long, too wide. Its fingers wrapping around the frame of the doorway. It never fully entered, just hovered there. My sister whispered to the shadow. She looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were all black. Then the footage ended. I haven't seen her for days, but sometimes, when I'm alone in the house, I feel breathing behind me. Last night, I found another note on my mirror, scrawled in something dark red. If you enjoyed the story, consider subscribing. But don't blame me if you can't sleep tonight. Until next time, keep the lights on and the doors locked. Goodbye.